Okay, this is notes for 6-4, solving day 1. So it goes through some guidelines, some steps for solving. The first thing you want to do is isolate the radical or exponential term, meaning the cube root, or you have the parentheses cubed. So look on number 1, you want this isolated. On 2, you want this isolated. So number 1, your radical is isolated. So you move on to cube or cube root both sides. If you have the cube root, the opposite is to cube. So you're going to take that and cube it. So when you cube a cube root, you're left with what's inside, 7x minus 15. 5 cubed is 125. So then step 3 is to solve for x. So I'm going to add 15 to both sides. Negative 15 plus 15 adds to 0. So it leaves me 7x equals 140. So 7 times x is 140. So I'm going to divide by 7. And I get that x is 20. So if I wanted to check if my answer was correct, I'd go in and put 20 in for x. So math 4 brings up the cube root, 7 times 20 minus 15. That needs to equal 5 if my answer is correct. I get 5, so x is 20. So the next one, my cube term is not isolated. I'm adding 1. So I need to get that 1 on the right side of the equation. So this leaves me the cube term is equal to 8. So now I'm going to cube root, since the cube root is the opposite of cube. So the cube root and the cube undo each other and leave me that inside. 3x minus 10. The cube root of 8 is 2. And so from here, I just have a linear equation. I need to solve for x. So I'm going to add 10 to both sides. That gives me 3x is equal to 12. So I divide by 3. I get that x is 4. And step 4 says check for extraneous solutions. So that means extra. So if I plug my number into the equation and it doesn't give me 5, or this one when I put 4 in, it doesn't give me 9. That would be extraneous. But remember we said the domain and range are all real numbers. So there's no number that we can't get. So that means that every time I get a number and I plug it back in, it better work. Otherwise, somewhere I did my math wrong. Because you're never going to have an extraneous solution for cubes and cube roots because the domain and range is all real numbers. So number 3 is going to be a really awfully huge answer. So I'm going to add 32,768 to both sides. Then divide by 8, because I need to get my cube root alone. The cube root of 8, or the cube root of x, is equal to 4,096. So now when I cube both sides, this answer is about to be ridiculous. Yeah. That's huge. And you wouldn't see something like that on the test. But this question was just to show you that you can get any answer. So that's saying that I have 6, 8, 7, 1, 9, 4, 7, 6, 7, 4. I don't know what my last decimal is, so I'm just going to say 0. So that's saying something like 68 billion is my answer. In this one, I need this term by itself. So I'm going to subtract 7. And I get 4x cubed equals negative 4. I'm going to divide by 4. That gives me x cubed is negative 1. So when I cube root both sides, I get x equals the cube root of negative 1. The cube root of negative 1 is negative 1. And number 5, I need this by itself. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. So I'm going to cube. I'm going to subtract 3. I got 1686. So this one, I'm going to start the furthest away from x. So I'm going to add 2, and I get 5 times 3x minus 5 cubed equals 1715. Divide by 5. It's going to be 343. I'm going to take the cube root of that. It leaves me the inside, 3x minus 5. That gives me 7. Then I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Gives me 3x equals 12. Divide by 3, and get x equals 4. So that one works out. So if you haven't already, I would practice checking your answer in the calculator. Just something might happen on test day and you might forget how to do the problem, but you have answer choices. You need to be able to use those answer choices to figure out which one is the correct answer.